Welcome back. I'm sorry to have inconvenienced you about the break. I know you were desperate to say something. Please say it.
No, I agree with Leon on reproducing the patterns of apartheid and reproducing the forms of dispossession that we saw in 1913. However, I think there's a critical issue that needs to be asked, which is the people who hold land, property, huge, vast pieces of property. To what extent are they prepared to come forward and say, can we actually share this estate, so that government doesn't have to take the hardest decision, which is expropriation, which, because a lot of stuff in society doesn't only work in terms of the law, it also works in terms of goodwill, right? So what would you think would be the role of those who hold land, particularly in the private sector, particularly white people who continue to hold those vast pieces of real estate?
How do you respond to that?
There are two very different things. One is blacks who already have land, 10 million pieces of land. They could be given a title deed. Simple, cheap, quick, easy. The next thing is that the land that is so-called redistributed is not redistributed at all. The government is doing exactly what Verwoerd wanted it to do. He is thrilled. The ghost of Verwoerd walks around with a big smile on his face, because what they do is they buy white farmland, and when people talk about land, they seem to mean farmland. They're not talking about urban land. We can get to that. And what do? They put blacks there as tenants. So now they expect a person who doesn't own the land, who can't mortgage it, who can't sell it, who can't trade in it, to farm as well as a white farmer next door who has full ownership. Now that is just reinforcing the legacy of apartheid, guaranteeing black failure.
Listen,
blacks
Leon,
will fail.
Listen, Leon, you don't have to tell me about that. That's what I wrote about last weekend. That's what I work on in terms of how the logic of colonialism and the logic of apartheid in fact informs the ways in which this government thinks and approaches people. It happens everywhere, that logic, right? In any society. What I am wanting to get to is that not only are we supposed to to dispose of state land, I wanted to talk about land that is in private ownership, which is also a source of inequality, because in my view, the issue of title deeds is not quite as simple as that. The home that I have in rural Eastern Cape is a home that belongs to my clan, right? Now, when we look at title deeds, we need to look at a whole spectrum of them to protect even those who are weakest in that. So so the indigenous titles.
Okay. But even the point is made, because I'm sorry.
But I wanted to talk about private.
But even the fact that you have to use title deeds, so even the systems that we're operating with, right, remain the same exclusionary systems that we inherited.
No, I accept that, but I don't want to lose this point, because I'll come back to you. But the point is this: to what extent is there an obligation on white people, enormously privileged, as they were, from 300 years, to say, we've got to come forward to make this country work? That's the real question we put to you.
The ANC needs me as their propagandist. Over half of all land transfers.
Leon, you're ducking the question.
No, I'm not. Private people buying and selling land in the economy. Black land, this is the patronizing racist view, is that black land is land the government puts them on.
What is black land, Leon?
That's the point. That the
No,
majority...
I'm asking you, what is black land? Explain to me what is black land.
The people who say black South Africans don't own land are people who presume that black South Africans live on government land.
My friend,
majority
as we speak now, farmers are selling land to Dutch owners, okay, for a song. They in turn sell it to the state at exorbitant prices. That's what free market does. And
the state buying land in the free market, this is an interesting
I don't know where I mean, if you, for example, travel in the Eastern Cape, huge amount of land is now game farms.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Now, sorry, that's
You're
all
obsessed
private.
with rural land. People live in cities. Over half of all land transfers are now
But
to
I'm
blacks.
talking
But
about
that's
the
not
rural
rural
land
land.
where there's really immense
not rural
poverty.
land.
And I'm asking you a simple
No,
question.
no, there is
and you
no-
will not answer.
No, people
and I'm
live
going to
in
ask
towns
again.
and
No, but I think-
villages. Very, very few people are farmers. A minute percentage of
This
the
is
population.
part of the legacy. This is part of, and this is where, in fact,
Nomboniso, I have to
Zimbabwe.
give-
This is what led to the crisis in Zimbabwe. I can tell you, it did not start.
Yes.
So then why do we
All right, hang on. I
perpetuate
don't
it?
want to. Yes, you want to make a point. We're not only about land here. Yes, there's a bigger point here.
I
Yes,
think that Leon has indirectly answered the question.
right.
Because Leon has focused on the responsibility of a government, largely, in fact, a black, as you would say, black-run government.
I didn't say that, but if you want to say that,
well,
that's fine.
as
with
a
me.
person would say.
No,
to
Oh, then what is it?
that's Shaka's point.
That's my point, I guess. But he's basically saying, look, the responsibility in terms of addressing the legacy is with the state.
And I'm talking about
It's
private
ironic
people. That's
coming from someone who believes in the free market, but he's basically saying the responsibility of redress is lying with the state.
No, but
And therefore, there is no responsibility on any beneficiary to actually look at this issue of redress.
And that's what I'm asking.
In fact, I actually want to challenge you because I actually wonder why every time there's a discussion on the legacy of apartheid, black people have to be in the room. I think this is a discussion that white people need to start having.
Well,
open
we've
and
had that,
honestly.
by the way, on this thing. I'm sorry you didn't watch that.
Yes.
I'm sorry you didn't watch
but in
that.
terms of-
But I'm sorry, I actually think that's also wrong, if you don't mind me defending. I think if we're going to talk about non-racialism, let's, for goodness sake, talk as a diverse community. One thing we don't want to reproduce is apartheid.
What
Right.
we're finding
You
is
are
that
yeah.
what we're finding is that in every discussion around legacy, you'll find black people are saying the same thing. Oh, there's a legacy; it's weighing us down.
I don't think that's totally
generally,
true.
and then white people
I'm
are
hearing
saying,
different.
well,
I'm hearing different things tonight.
well, you know,
All right.
we have to move on.
But I want to ask
But
you
what I'm
this-
trying to say
yeah.
is this: when do white people actually have that discussion to say what is our?
I think they are increasingly.
hang on, yes, please, yeah.
They are increasingly having that discussion. In my experience, I wrote a similar column 5 years ago about white privilege, and I got annihilated. They were very angry. 5 years later, people like you and I talking about these things in a very painful way is getting through to some people slowly. I have seen the majority of the discussion happening around my column about white privilege in white circles. I've seen people writing Afrikaans about it in Beeld and Rapport and having discussions with other white people. And I agree with you, it's important, and I think it is happening.
But
Right.
I'd
Can
also
I
be-
just
but
ask
I also
this,
have a
I
problem.
just want to
I
ask
know-
you.
I
No,
know-
I want
I
to.
know-
No,
I have a
no.
problem with this black-white thing
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
because I'm very uncomfortable with an assumption that black people have an homogenized.
Yeah,
I don't think they
and
do.
white people
Absolutely
have an. I
Absolutely
mean,
true.
let's also not.
I don't
get
think white
there.
people have a
Neither.
homogeneous view. As you can see, this is an enormous issue. It has issues about the question of the role of the state and what its responsibility is and what extent we use race to, in a sense, exonerate, to hold the state accountable. But there are much larger issues here. And the real issue is, how do you go forward without, in fact, addressing the past? How do you deal with the question where so many people in South Africa actually do not recognize just what imbalances were created by apartheid, and therefore, by not recognizing that, are unable to address how we move forward. Now, to some extent, we've touched on these issues, whether these issues should be dealt with in a diverse society, whether we should deal with it in our own communities, whether we should try to prefigure what a non-racial community should be, where the role of the government is, where the role of individuals are. These are all profound questions. How do we strike balances between them? Judge for yourself. Goodbye.